Okay, so we are roasting a pork loin tonight for dinner. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to roast this on a bed of mirepoix. Remember, your mirepoix is 50% onion, 25% carrot, 25% celery. This can be a rough, large dice because we are not going to eat this. It's just going to be aromatics, while it roasts, and extra flavoring. So you'll see me rough chop this very quickly, large pieces, and then we're just gonna create a bed of mirepoix for the roasted pork loin to sit on.
Hannah, David, Tommy, Dora, Mandrake.
So just a rough chop. You can mix these together. And we're going to transfer them to our baking sheet here.
How about a demi-tassy for Cassie? This is a party, Marty. Now you get the cherry, Jerry. Now don't be so picky.
Okay, after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dice up some rosemary that I'm going to use.
Now don't make me nag you, mag you. Eat the table, the chairs. Kitchen, who cares? Eat all my things if they gag you.
Rosemary is a very common herb used in the roasting method for parts of the beef, lamb. So you'll see it in pork. So you'll see it like with prime ribs. You'll see it in pork. You'll see it in lamb chops. Or beef tenderloins. Okay, so I'm just small dicing this because I'm going to add this to my outer layer of pork to season it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the pork loin. This is a pork loin. This is not the whole loin. The loin is much longer. I just got enough to feed 3 people. So it's about a half a pound a person. I'm going to go ahead and use butcher twine to tie up my roast, and this is just to create a more even, juicier product in the end. If you have a pork loin with the bone in, it can add more depth and flavor to your final product. I don't have the bone in on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this and start here. There's different ways to tie up a roast. There's different methods used depending on what you're trying to achieve. So we are going to sear the outside of our pork loin roast in a pan with olive oil. After we sear it and brown it on all sides, that starts the caramelization process. That's going to start the flavor. Then we are going to put the pork loin into the oven. We're going to cook the pork loin until the internal temperature is 140 degrees. And then we will pull it out. We will let it rest for 15 minutes before slicing it thin and serving it for dinner. Okay, so we have a hot saute pan here, and what we are going to do is we are going to sear our pork loin. We're searing our pork loin because by searing it, it does 2 things. So first of all, it's going to caramelize the outside of our meat, which will develop flavor. And 2, by searing the outside and browning the outside at a higher temp before putting it in the oven, it's going to seal in the moisture in those juices. So we have a saute pan that's been heated up with a little bit of oil. And we're gonna go ahead, we are going to sear all the sides of our pork loin. So once again, start that caramelization and to lock those juices in while it's in the oven. Roasting is a slow cooking method, usually roast at a low heat of 350. And depending on the size meat will depend on the time. This will take Almost an hour, maybe 45 minutes, but probably an hour to finish and turn a to 140 degrees. When we check the temperature, we will check at the thickest point, which will be inside. So we are browning all sides of this. You can see that caramelization there on the first surface. Okay, and then we will move this onto our bed of mirepoix. I brought my pan over. And we are now going to add that rosemary that we diced up. We're going to sprinkle it on top. As this is cooking, we're also going to apply a honey mustard glaze. So I'm going to show you how to make that. And then we will apply that throughout the cooking process. Okay, this is ready to go in the oven. So it's going to go in at 350 degrees. It's going to roast until the internal temperature is 140 degrees. So we are making a honey mustard glaze to go on top of our pork loin. So what it is it's a 1/3 cup of honey. Now I'm only gonna do about a 1/4 cup because my pork loin is a little smaller. And then it's a 1/3 cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of mustard. I am going to use just 1 tablespoon of mustard. And I have this Dijon mustard. You could use regular yellow mustard. The Dijon just has more seasoning in it. And this glaze is gonna go on the outside of my pork loin. Throughout the roasting method, I will apply it. And it's just gonna deepen that flavor. So about 15 minutes in, you can apply your first one. You can apply it in steps or apply it all at once, and then let your pork loin roast out. So our pork loin came out of the oven. We're gonna let it rest for about 15 minutes before slicing it then and serving it. And once again, we checked it with the thermometer to make sure the internal temp was 140 degrees. So today we're gonna make cranberry sauce. So we're gonna have equal portions of water and sugar that are gonna go into our pot first. This is just a sauce pot we're using. So we have 1 cup of water and 1 cup of sugar. And this kind of creates that simple syrup. It's gonna thicken. We want our sugar to dissolve. So we're gonna start simmering this on the stove while we get the rest of our ingredients together. Okay, so we have 1 bag of cranberries, 16 ounces. We have 1 cup of walnuts, a 1/2 cup of raisins, and then what we have to get ready is we have to get our apple peeled and ready to go, and we have to zest our lemon and orange and squeeze the juice out of them. I'm gonna go ahead and peel the apple. Okay, and using my chef knife, I'm going to dice the apple into small amounts, small pieces, not getting the core in there. It can be rough chopped, doesn't have to be perfect. And if I was using a lot of apples and taking a lot of time, I would want an acid solution so they would not turn brown. But because I am throwing these in the pot right away, I'm going to go ahead and skip that step. Granny Smith apples work best. They're very tart and they hold up well and they don't turn into like an applesauce consistency because you want that crunchy texture. Okay, and then I'm gonna zest the outside of my orange and lemon. When we're zesting, I'm using a microplane here. When we're zesting, we do not want to go past, if you take it down to white or too pale of an orange on the skin, you're going to get very bitter notes in your, whatever you're using for it, so the end result. I'm just putting my zest right on top of my apples. So with the lemon, we don't want to take it down to white. And if there's a bad part of the skin, I don't zest that part. Usually I leave it off. Okay, and then we're going to use a juicer. This is just a hand juicer. We're gonna slice our orange and lemon in half, and we are going to juice them. Okay, so we're gonna add the juice from 1 lemon and 1 orange. We have our bag of cranberries, we have our 1 apple diced, our cup of walnuts, half a cup of raisins. We have our solution over here that is simmering because the sugar is dissolving. So we're gonna go ahead and turn our heat down. We don't wanna caramelize our product. And we're going to add all of our ingredients into the bowl and let it cook out, or into the sauce pot. So here we have all of our cranberry sauce fillings in our sauce pot with our simple syrup. And we're going to go ahead and simmer this for about 20 minutes, and then we'll remove it from the stove. You let it cool in your refrigerator, and then you'll have your cranberry sauce. Okay, so our cranberry sauce has been simmering on low, and it is ready. So now I'm gonna transfer it to another container. You kind of want it to be a little shallow, and I'm going to stick this in the refrigerator to cool down. And it will set up, and you'll see the final result after I spoon it out after it cools. So we've let the cranberry sauce cool in the refrigerator, and you can see how it thickened up nicely to create a nice cranberry sauce for the top of our pork loin. Okay, so we're gonna take potatoes and make a different potato dish than you might be used to. So you might be used to like mashed potatoes, a baked potato. So we are going to do a potato gratin. A gratin originated in French cuisine, and it means browned on top. And it has like this brown crust that is usually made from breadcrumbs and cheese or breadcrumbs or cheese. So we are going to use breadcrumbs and cheese today. There's heavy cream in gratins. You've seen gratin done with mac and cheese dishes, or if you've ordered a gratin at a restaurant, it usually comes in an individual ramekin dish, and they will brown it to go. So I have some Gruyere cheese and some Parmesan cheese to add to my potato gratin today. My cream is seasoned with nutmeg, thyme, onion powder, and garlic powder. And then the breadcrumbs are gonna be the last stage. It's gonna bake for an hour, and then I will remove the foil that's gonna be on top. So it's gonna bake for an hour or until the potatoes are tender. I'm gonna remove the foil on top. I will put the breadcrumbs on there with some extra cheese, and I will brown the top of the crust. So for a gratin to work, you need to have a shallow baking dish, and your dish needs to be coated with butter. So I have that ready. Then you need to slice your potato very thin. This is done easily if you have a mandolin. Also, sometimes the slicing mechanism on a grater is thin enough. Mine is not, so I'm doing it by hand. Remember, potatoes will stick to your knife because of the starch in them, so you can add water to your knife to slice it. So I'm just dipping it in water to try to prevent my chef knife from sticking so much. So I'm just trying to get really thin slices here. And I'm going to do this with all my potatoes, and then you'll start to see me layer them in the hotel pan or my shallow dish that I am using. So as I'm layering, I'm going to layer one layer of potatoes. I will throw some cream on top, and then I will cut my next potato. And I'm gonna repeat this step until I use all of my potatoes. Halfway through, I'll sprinkle in some cheese. So a little bit of cream. And then I'm gonna continue on.
Hoping this good food fills ya. Work by hands to the bone, in the kitchen alone. You better eat if it kills ya. Have anything you like, Mike?
Why, thank you, Bill.
The steak is choice, Royce.
Yummy.
I got a bonbon for you, John.
Everybody eats when they come to my house.
Hannah, David, Tommy, Dora, Mandrake.
Everybody eats when they come to my house.
Now pass me a pancake, Mandrake. Have an hors d'oeuvre, Merv. How about a demi-tassy for Cassie?
All right. Everybody eats when they come to my house.
This is a party, Marty.
Okay, so we're gonna cover this. We're gonna make this at 375. It's gonna take about an hour or longer. You can check it with a fork to see if your potatoes are tender. Then we will remove the foil. We're gonna turn up our heat to about 425. Add our breadcrumbs and the remainder of our cheese. And then we will brown the top crust.